Yo, what is going on YouTube? It is your boy GZTV. We are back with another video, and in this video, actually, one second. Figured I'd, throw the Wemby jersey on to show my respects. But we are here to talk about the top 100 NBA players of the 2024-2025 season. And as you guys have heard in probably recent videos, there is a cricket in the stew at home. So never mind that. But I really like the format I did for this video last year. I was kind of going back and watching, and I was like, I'm going to do exactly that for this video. We're going through the top 100 players, the best players of the season. Now, obviously, the playoffs and stuff like that gave some of these players a bit of a boost, and injuries definitely hindered other players. But again, 10 at a time, we're going to go like 100 to 91, 90 to 81, blah, 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 all the way up until the top 25. And in the top 25, those are kind of the all-star caliber players. So I figured, we'd go a little bit more in depth with it. This is going to be a big project. This is going to take me probably a couple of days to edit, probably all the rest of the weekend. So I'm getting this recorded on Tuesday. So without further ado, let's get into the list. Leave your opinions down below, any discrepancies you have, any discussions you want with my list. Let's get it. Starting with the top 100, and obviously I'll put a visual up on the screen so you won't be able to see my Wemby jersey anymore. But at 100, we have a young talent that still has a decent amount of potential from the Utah Jazz. We have Keontae George. At 99, another young talent. A couple of these guys are pretty young. From the Washington Wizards, we have Bub Carrington. At 98, a rookie, another young talent from that Wizards team, we have Alex Sarr. For a rookie season to be top 100, that means you've had a pretty successful season, of course. And for those players that kind of got moved around in free agency, I'm only going to be naming the players and the teams for players that, I know exactly where they play because, wow, it looks like a fucking fantasy draft right now. There's actually going to be a video later on that, by the way, just a quick announcement. But at 97, we have Tyus Jones. At 96, we have a veteran that actually just signed with the Sacramento Kings. We have Dennis Schroeder. At 95, another young talent, this time from the Trailblazers. A lot of potential in this guy as a perimeter player, Toumani Camara. And at 94, man, there's a lot of younger guys on this list. From the San Antonio Spurs, we have Stephon Castle. At 93, a guy I should probably have put higher because of his performance in the playoffs, but from the Pacers, we have Benedict Mathurin. At 92, another young guy from that Spurs team, we have Devin Vassell. He's starting to kind of sprout into a star player. At 91, a younger guy from the Nets. I'm not sure if he's still on the Nets, but we have Nick Claxton. Top 90, let's get it. At 90, we have a guy that had a couple of spurts this season, really impressive scoring performances from, I believe, the Sixers. We have Quentin Grimes. At 89, a veteran in the league at this point, made a couple All-Star games. From the Heat right now, we have Andrew Wiggins. At 88, I'm not sure if he's still on the Kings, but a younger guy, we have Keegan Murray, great perimeter player. At 87, a guy that the Nuggets actually just signed. We have not a star, but a veteran big man in Jonas Valanciunas. At 86, one of the better bench players in the NBA, we have Malik Monk. At 85, a pretty decent young talent in Trey Murphy III. At 84, a veteran, one of the more skilled, one of the higher IQ point guards of all time from the Spurs, we have Chris Paul. Now, honestly, I'm not even really sure how he made this list, but I'm fine with it. At 83, a guy that continues to kind of go under the radar in the NBA, but we have Tobias Harris. At 82, a guy that just signed a huge extension with the Raptors. Again, I'm kind of reflecting on free agency here a little bit, but a solid traditional big man in Jakob Poeltl. At 81, a guy that signed to the Pelicans pretty recently and is hoping to kind of lead his young career with a rebuilding squad. We have Jordan Poole. That's the top 90. At number 80, I'm not sure what team he's on, if he's still on the Jazz or not. I'm lagging, which is fine, but we have Walker Kessler out of Auburn. At 79, a decent veteran point guard who actually won a championship for the Raptors and is kind of trying to spearhead the Rockets as a veteran presence in Fred VanVleet. At 78, a huge part of that OKC Thunder championship squad came off the benches of big man Isaiah Hartenstein. At 77, another guy I can't really judge because he didn't make a huge playoff run and he just got picked up by the Warriors late in the season, Jimmy Butler. Slightly above him, I do think at 76, the fact that Draymond Green, I do believe won DPOY or was at least a candidate. Draymond Green, yeah, I do think he deserves to be this high. 75, a fantastic 4th to 5th option, maybe even 6th option now that the Nuggets are getting deeper. We have Christian Brown. At 74, a great role player that played well in the playoffs as well for the Timberwolves. We have Jaden McDaniels. At 73, a slightly younger guy. He's kind of getting more into his veteran years, but from the Trailblazers, a guy I still think has a lot of potential in the league. Then Avdia at 72, I honestly think the same of Raptors RJ Barrett. I know he's kind of getting to that point in his career where it's like he might be peaking, but still think there's a lot to offer. At 71, boy oh boy did this age terribly, but I do think Malik Beasley, one of the best bench players in the league for the Pistons, deserves to be on this list, despite his allegations. Getting into the top 70, at 70, another dope role player for this Timberwolves team, one of the best bench players in the league, Naz Reid. At 69, obviously injuries are going to hinder this man, but you can't deny that CJ McCollum is one of the premier guards in the league, I think. At 68, a young guy from the Trailblazers who's, I think he actually went to like the Wizards or something. I don't remember where Shaedon Sharpe went, but he's here. At 67, a veteran, a future Hall of Famer, one of the better point guards of our generation from the Nuggets, we have Russell Westbrook. At 66, another young guard that was on that Trailblazers team, but is now on my Boston Celtics, baby. Shout out to one of the more underrated guards in the league with Anthony Simons. At 65, Brook Lopez, a guy that just signed with the Clippers and was a decent part of the Bucks playoff run. At 64, actually a player that's pretty similar to him and who is taking his place in Milwaukee and had a solid playoff run, Miles Turner. At 63, another one of the best bench players in the league for my Boston Celtics. I'm so happy that we drafted him, Peyton Pritchard. Right above him at 62, another player on that Boston Celtics team which had some really good games, had a decent playoff run, could probably be a little higher, but I have Derek White here. At 61, another pretty underrated player in the league. I don't remember where Miles Bridges went, if he stayed in Charlotte or went somewhere else, but he is definitely on this list. In the top 60, starting at 60, one of the better like role player, third to fourth option players in the league, one of the more efficient scorers at that role in the league, we have Norman Powell. At 59, I do think he's a little high considering how bad he was in the playoffs, but Michael Porter Jr., the Nets' newest acquisition. At 58, one of the best on-ball defenders in the league. I know this guy seems a little high, but Dyson Daniels, just his feats as a defender in the league this year, puts him up here. At 57, I do think injuries and some slightly bad performances kind of hindered Julius Randle's season. At 56, one of the most under-respected, underappreciated, underrated, whatever you want to call it, big men in the league for the Hawks, we have Onyeka Okongwu. Great future for him. Another guy with a great future at 55 from the Houston Rockets, Amen Thompson, who's going to have a great future again with that core with Kevin Durant and all those guys. At 54, one of the better second options in the league from the Grizzlies, we have Desmond Bane. I do think he went to the Magic, I'm not sure. At 53, a pretty big part of that Knicks playoff run, a pretty big part of their team, Mikal Bridges. At 52, one of the better true traditional interior big men in the league, very young guy, awesome lob threat from the Pistons, we have Jalen Duren. And at 51, another really good premier defender from that New York Knicks team, great playoff games this year, OG Anunoby. Man, oh man, we are cracking the top 50 at 50. The third option as of now, depending on what free agency goes like, we have Austin Reeves. I think he's still on the Lakers. At 49 from the Bulls, a really underrated player, I think, is Josh Giddey. Man, he had some fantastic fantasy performances. I know he was on my team. At 48, one of the best defensive bigs in the NBA from the Timberwolves, a anchor, a staple on that team, Rudy Gobert. At 47, a guy that's kind of losing steam in the league. Not necessarily the number one option this season for the Grizzlies, but their star player, Ja Morant. At 46, injuries hurt this guy, but I had to put him on the list from the Orlando Magic. Just what he did when he was healthy, Paolo Banchero. At 45, this is kind of the section where there's a lot of injuries, a lot of stars that got injured. That's kind of this whole section here. At 45 from the Charlotte Hornets, we have LaMelo Ball. At 44 from the Dallas Mavericks, we have Kyrie Irving. At 43, a guy that had a fantastic playoff run last season with the Sixers, their second option at the moment. You know, obviously him pairing with Jared McCain is going to be absolutely lethal next season, but we have Tyrese Maxey. At 42, he's not the best player on the Bulls, but he's the most recognizable. He's got probably the best offensive game. That is Kobe White. At 41, we actually have a former Chicago Bull, which again, injuries kind of hurt this guy's season. We have Zach LaVine. At 40, I'm not going to lie, probably the best role player in the league right now is Josh Hart from the New York Knicks. I have a lot of praise for this guy. He's not the best scorer in the world, but he literally does everything else well. At number 39 from the Orlando Magic, probably their best player this year just because of the Paolo Banchero injuries, but we have Franz Wagner. At 38, one of the better, most underappreciated, one of the best rim protectors in the league from the Cleveland Cavaliers, we have Jared Allen. At 37, kind of a disappointing season for this guy from the Boston Celtics, and maybe I'm kind of shitting shitting on him too much because I'm a fan of the team, but we have Jaylen Brown. At 36, injuries kind of hurt this guy in a couple of weak performances from the Bucks. We have Damian Lillard. Some of these guys definitely should be higher, but again, injuries. At 35, you could say the same for De'Aaron Fox of the San Antonio Spurs and kind of give him time to adjust to the system. At 34, another premier big man in the league from the Miami Heat, we got Bam Adebayo. At 33, from the Cleveland Cavaliers, their second or third option, their second or third best player, one of the smoothest point guards, fastest handles in the league, Darius Garland. At 32, one of the better scorers in the league and one of the better scorers, especially at that shooting guard position, we have Tyler Hero. He's going to have a great career ahead of him. At 31, kind of disappointed in this guy's season, but I guess injuries kind of got in the way from the Raptors. We have Scotty Barnes. Getting into the top 30, I'm not really sure why I put him this high, but Jalen Green of the Rockets, he had a pretty shitty playoff performance, very inconsistent, but I don't know, I guess he should be up here. At 29, I continue to say this, I know people hate on me, and I've seen comments from like last year's video, like, oh, Vucevic is too high, but I have Vucevic at 29, and a pretty similar player that's not as good of a shooter at 28 from the Clippers, an absolute breakout season from this guy, we have Ivica Zubac. At 27, again, just like the same thing I said last year about this guy from the Nuggets, just his playoff performance really elevates him here. We have Jamal Murray. Now that I think about it, I don't think I put Aaron Gordon on this list. At 26, easily the best player right now on the Grizzlies, and he deserves fully that contract extension. Amazing season from Jaren Jackson Jr. At 25, another piece. I don't think I put Chet Holmgren on this list either. Jalen Williams of the Thunder is going to go up here. Amazing final series. One of the more impressive final series I've seen from a second or third option in a long time. At 24, the second best player on the Cavaliers, just an all-around complete player in Evan Mobley. At 23, I think he's still on the Kings. You have DeMar DeRozan there. At 22, a really good playoff run there for the Pacers, Pascal Siakam. And at 21, easily the best player on the Houston Rockets, we have Alperen Şengün. Okay, I was supposed to kind of go in depth with those last few players, but getting into number 20, a guy that's pretty undeniable to me is Kevin Durant of the Phoenix Suns. Now, I know a lot of you guys don't like seeing him this high, especially for how short the Suns have fallen in terms of like that whole acquisition and that whole plan for them to dominate the NBA, but Kevin fucking Durant, he's one of the most consistent, one of the most efficient players in the NBA. I think he full on deserves this. One of the best scorers in NBA history. I'm just going to continue to say that. He is an undeniable talent in this league and continues to be at the age of, what, 35? At number 19, one of the best shooting guards in the league, had a solid playoff run. I do believe he got hurt for the Cleveland Cavaliers, easily their best player. He could have been higher. I think he did have a couple of injuries, though. Donovan Mitchell, just some of the performances we have seen throughout this man's career, undeniable. Great scorer, one of the best players at just purely putting the ball in the hoop, being athletic, being able to score from all three levels of the floor. Donovan Mitchell, ladies and gentlemen. And at number 18, I used to be a huge fan of this guy of the Warriors, obviously their best player. He is another one of those veterans, another one of those guys from that LeBron, KD kind of clique that is undeniable. He's an undeniable talent. No matter what happens in a season, you kind of have to put him at that all-star level, top 20 level. Steph Curry, of course, tried all he could throughout that playoff run. They obviously fell a little bit short, but I think given that Jimmy Butler is still kind of adjusting to their system and they're trying to pick up other players, I think they played pretty well, and it's mainly because of Steph Curry. At number 17, one of the most surprising, one of the most out-of-nowhere playoff runs we have seen in a very, very long time from Tyrese Haliburton of the Indiana Pacers. Obviously, the finals didn't end the way that any of us wanted it to end, but without a doubt, Tyrese Haliburton, as of right now, is a top 20 player in the NBA. Just what he put up, his clutch performances, his timely shots. Again, it's just undeniable. You can't deny stuff like that. His shot's ugly, but it goes in. He makes plays when it matters. Love Tyrese Haliburton. At number 16, another player that kind of goes under the radar, another guy that's starting to enter his veteran years, I do believe is the best player on the Phoenix Suns, continues up the consistency, is Devin Booker. Again, they fell short, but they had those two players. I mean, obviously, I didn't really talk about KD going to Houston, but they had those two players last year, and they're two great basketball players. Now, obviously, it didn't mesh well. Obviously, it didn't lead to success, but one thing you have to say is Devin Booker is still a hell of a basketball player to this day, about 8 years into his career. At number 15, another guy that gets overlooked very often from the Atlanta Hawks, one of the most underrated players in the league, and I'll probably be saying this for the rest of his career because the media just doesn't give a damn about the Atlanta Atlanta Hawks, but we have Trae Young, one of the best passers in the league, one of the best scorers in the league, especially from range, one of the best pick and roll players in the league. He's not the greatest defensive player in the world, but he has such an arsenal, such a versatile game on offense. Trae Young, man. At number 14, a guy that just stuffs the stat sheet, a guy that just does everything. He's been the best player for a couple years now for the Sacramento Kings, and he has been an all-star caliber player, and they've continued to kind of shade him in the media as well. Another guy that doesn't get his respect, we have Domantas Sabonis, man. What can he do? He's not the greatest shooter. He's not going to get out from the three-point line and jack up shots like he's Curry, but for a big man in today's NBA, he exceeds expectations. He is a great player to have on your squad. At number 13, I know this guy is riddled with injuries, but he has always been a guy in this league that I've been a huge fan of from the Dallas Mavericks. I'm going with Anthony Davis, because you saw that first game when he was on the Mavs. You saw that little stretch he had before he got injured with the Mavs. If he would have stayed healthy, if Kyrie would have stayed healthy, man, oh fucking man, this team would have been dangerous. And I am so excited to see them going into the next season, you know, picking up Cooper Flag. It's going to be fucking amazing. It's going to be super entertaining to have a rookie like that build around some of the best NBA players of all time. Seriously. At number 12, a guy I probably could have had higher from the New York Knicks, their second option. A guy that was just amazing in the postseason and definitely deserved to be in this spot. One of the best like examples of a modern day big, you know, stretch five that can play some decent defense. I mean, obviously Karl Anthony Towns isn't the best defender in the world, but man, Cat, he is another undeniable player, another guy that's kind of entering those years in his career, and love watching him play. Cat. At number 11, another just undeniable veteran type of player, and I know this is very biased, and I know there's probably other players that could have gotten in over guys like this, but James Harden, I don't care what you say, I watch him play all the time. The Clippers are a team besides the Celtics that I really like to tune into. I watch his games. I watch him drop 40 points against the Pistons, and it was fucking incredible. Him and Cade battling it out, and I will talk about him in a second, but what a fun player to watch. Cracking the top 10, never have I thought that I would ever say that a player that played under 60 games in an NBA season would be top 10. It's Victor Wembanyama. Very early on in his career, the fact that he is an undeniable talent, the fact that he can't be left on a list like this. Obviously, most people would have him cracking like the top 40 just because of his injuries and his blood clot, which is extremely unfortunate, and I hope he gets better. Victor fucking Wembanyama, dude. Like, are you kidding me? When he is healthy, he does everything well. At number 9, another guy when he's healthy, and another guy when he's acclimated to the system that does it extremely well. The Lakers' latest pickup, Luka Doncic. He's incredible. Again, it's kind of disappointing the fact that he's not like a top 5 NBA player this year, but there's so many guys that had breakout seasons in place of him getting hurt and in place of him getting used to the LA atmosphere. But that's going to be a very exciting team to watch for the next 5 to 10 years as Luka kind of settles in, gets his new contract, and it's going to be awesome. At number 8, not really the biggest surprises. Like, I knew this guy always had some potential in the league, but we are here to talk about Cade Cunningham at number 8. One of the best point guards in the NBA, easily a top 5 point guard in the league. You could call him a shooting guard, but I think he's a point guard. I think he does well at handling the offense. He does well as a ball handler, even plays some pretty decent on-ball defense. Oklahoma State, very tough guy from there. Scores on all 3 levels of the floor and led the Pistons to one of their best seasons in years. At number 7, the best player on the New York Knicks, the number 1 option. One of the most clutch guys in the league. One of the better playoff performers that is active in the league. Jalen frickin' Brunson. I mean, my goodness, this guy can't go wrong. You don't see this guy have bad games. He's one of the more consistent star players in the NBA. Not a lot of slumps out of him. It does suck that the Knicks didn't at least make the finals. They could have made it an extra round further, but Jalen Brunson. At number 6, I know you Jordan fans are gonna fucking hate me for this. LeBron fucking James at year 22 is still putting up fantastic numbers, and I haven't even been talking about numbers. I've been kind of going off top of the head here, but looking at LeBron James, we're talking about a guy that in year 22 is averaging 24, 8, and 8. He is an all-star at everything, shooting 51% from the field. Now, he might not be the greatest like defensive player of the year candidate or anything in the world, but at 40 years old, you don't go out there average 24, 8, and 8, shoot over 50% from the field, and not be praised by it. I don't know what you guys are on. Cracking the top 5, I would honestly probably flip like Brunson and Anthony Edwards here, but I really like Anthony Edwards as a young talent, as a future face of the NBA for the Timberwolves, and I really like what's going to happen moving forward. They have such great guard play that they've drafted and developed. Shannon and Rob Dillingham. They got a lot of dope pieces developing there, and he's obviously the guy they're building around, and he's a pretty fantastic player in the moment. So shout out to Anthony Edwards, definitely at least a top 10 player. You guys should know what my top 4 looks like, but coming in at number 4, it's kind of looked the same over the last few years, which kind of sucks for the sake of my videos and the surprise of it. But from the Boston Celtics, again, another player similar to Tyrese Haliburton, but kind of disappointed this season with the injury, Jason Tatum. Now, I don't think we would have won the finals had he been healthy, because we were kind of playing like shit, but Jason fucking Tatum, he is a star. He's going to be a star for the next 5 to 10 years probably. Jason fucking Tatum, man. I mean, we're rebuilding with him being hurt, and it's going to be actually really fun, I think, to watch the Celtics. Now, most Celtics fans are pretty negative on it, but I think it's going to be fun to watch them, considering we got all these guys kind of developing. So get well soon, JT. At number 3, realistically, he's probably a better player than Shea, and so is the guy I'm about to name above him. But obviously, the MVP, the finals MVP, one of the most historical seasons in NBA history, had to be number 1. You guys know that. But Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks definitely deserves to be in the top 3 spot. Just his play. The only thing he can't do is shoot the basketball, and even then, he is steadily improving his outside of the paint shooting percentages. So it's just something to marvel at. He's an absolute freak. He's a once-in-a-generation superstar. Giannis Antetokounmpo will forever be in my top 10. He's probably going to end up being top 10 all the time as well, for being honest. He would have literally put up wilt numbers if he played during that time. At number 2, probably the most well-rounded player in the entire NBA. Again, I know the defense isn't there. I know it's kind of a liability, but from the Nuggets, Nikola Jokic. What is he bad at besides defense? I'm fucking waiting. He's literally like premier at fucking everything but defense. Every single year for the last 2-3 years. Top 10 in everything. Shooting percentage, scoring, rebounding, passing. I mean, how can a guy that averaged 30, 13, 10, shooting 58%? That's one of the greatest individual seasons we have fucking seen of all time. He only missed 12 games this season, and my goodness, even in the postseason, you know, averaging 26 points, 8 assists, 13 rebounds, still getting 2 steals a game, a block, even had 2 steals a game in the regular season. So this is a guy that's just constantly improving. Shout out to fucking Jokic. He's decent at getting in the passing lanes now. Like, he's improving that in his game, and I fucking love him for it. You know, being 30 years old, I do think he still has 3 or 4 more really good years. They're building some guys around him. We'll have to see what happens. But at number 1, this is one of the greatest individual seasons probably in NBA history. You don't often see the regular season MVP also go on to win a championship. You just don't see this type of consistency. You don't just see this type of success. And the Thunder just coming out of nowhere, mainly because of this guy. We have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's amazing. He doesn't do anything poorly. Anything you need him to do for this team, he is going to do. If he's having a bad shooting night, he can play make. He can score anyway. You know, there's not many nights where he'd have under 20 points. He can play perimeter defense, and this Thunder team is so good at getting in passing lanes, so good at being passed on defense, and Shai doesn't shy away from that. You know, you see most star players kind of shy away from that, you know, guarding the ball handler. Not Shai. It's a different fucking animal on that team, and that is why they won the championship, and a huge reason, probably about 60 to 70% of the reason this team won the championship is because of Shai. So shout out to him. I know I've probably hated on him maybe a little bit in the past because I just wanted to see my Celtics win. The Thunder deserved this. Shai deserved this. What a fucking incredible season it was for him. Well, everybody, that is going to do it for the video. I know I kind of talked fast in the video, but I have to head to bed. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments section below. I'm answering everything. There was obviously a few questionable decisions, a few questionable placements. I know Jalen Green, I already know that's going to get shit on. He's a little high on this list. Vucevic might even be a little high on this list, but I considered everything. The playoff runs, injuries, everything. I'm not just saying, oh, dude, LeBron's the best player in the league, or, oh, Paolo Banchero is an all-star level player. If he would have played more games, sure. But again, I'm taking a lot of things, and sorry, I don't know what the fuck I'm lagging for. I gotta get out of here before it gets worse. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. As always, it's been your boy GZTV, giving you guys the best NBA videos all season long, last season, and all season long next season. We've been streaming on YouTube, covering the close games of the regular season, the postseason, the finals. Gonna be doing a stream on the free agency stuff right before the season. I don't feel like doing an edited video because your boy's really been in his bag with these TV shows and movies. I might do it. We'll have to see. I'm definitely gonna do a stream on it, maybe post the VOD on YouTube after. So, that being said, have a good rest of your night. I'm out.